The air in the abandoned warehouse hung thick with dust and the stale scent of forgotten ambition. Sandman, a mountain of shifting particles, grumbled about the latest failed heist, his form rippling with frustration. Electro, sparks crackling around his fingertips like nervous energy, paced impatiently, muttering about wasted potential. And then there was Venom. He sat hunched on a rusting metal drum, the black living suit shimmering faintly under the single bare bulb that lit their impromptu hideout. His broad white eyes surveyed the scene with an unnerving stillness, the sharp teeth of his perpetual grin visible even when his maw was closed. This was the Sinister Six, a collective of Spider-Man's most formidable foes, a gathering of destructive power. But tonight, there was an unusual, unsettling addition: Venom. For a brief, perplexing period, the symbiotic terror found himself, almost unbelievably, allied with this motley crew. It was a partnership born less of shared ideology and more of convenience, perhaps a temporary truce in the perpetual chaos that defined their existence. The Sinister Six, at this particular juncture, was a rotating cast, but Sandman and Electro were constants, reliable conduits for their leaders' schemes, whatever those might be. They saw Venom as a blunt instrument, a tool of immense, unpredictable power that could tip the scales. Venom, for his part, perhaps saw an opportunity for greater chaos, a chance to unleash his particular brand of justice, or more accurately, vengeance, on a larger scale. The initial days were predictably tense. Venom was not one for camaraderie, and his silent, imposing presence unsettled even seasoned villains. He spoke little, often observing with that unsettling intensity, his very being a coiled spring of latent aggression. The other members found him odd. His priorities, his fixations seemed alien to their own desires for wealth, power, or simple destructive gratification. They were motivated by the tangible: money, control, public recognition. Venom's motivations were far more abstract, rooted in a twisted sense of order and a possessive, almost romantic bond with his human host, Eddie Brock. The true breaking point wasn't a grand betrayal on a battlefield, but a slow, simmering resentment that boiled over in the confines of that grimy warehouse. The Sinister Six were attempting to coordinate their next move, discussing strategies, assigning roles. As always, Venom was an outlier. He preferred direct, brutal confrontation, eschewing the elaborate plans of his newfound teammates. And he had, in their eyes, peculiar needs. He needed quiet spaces for the symbiote to rest, a certain temperature range, and an almost childlike aversion to loud, high-pitched noises. It was Electro, always the most volatile and least patient, who finally snapped. "He's more trouble than he's worth," he scoffed, gesturing dismissively towards the silent, hulking figure of Venom. Always with the "we need quiet" and the "suit feels funny." What kind of monster is afraid of a little noise? Sandman, usually more pragmatic, chuckled, a dry, grating sound like shifting sand. And don't forget his obsession with, what was it, chocolate or brains? Can't even decide if he's a beast or a picky eater. We need someone who can focus on the job, not whether his pet goo is having a bad day. Their words, initially whispered, grew louder, fueled by their shared frustration and a misguided sense of superiority. They mocked the symbiote's perceived weaknesses, its vulnerability to sonics and intense heat, dismissing them as trivial flaws in a supposedly ultimate weapon. They scoffed at what they called Venom's mundane desires, mistaking the symbiote's particular dietary needs and sensory sensitivities for effeminate quirks. They didn't understand the depth of the bond. They didn't comprehend that for Venom, the symbiote wasn't a pet or a suit. It was them. It was an intrinsic part of his very being, his strength, his identity. To mock the symbiote was to mock Venom himself, to attack the very core of his existence. It was a profound disrespect, a personal affront that Venom, in his twisted pride, could not tolerate. The air in the warehouse suddenly dropped several degrees. The faint shimmer around Venom intensified, becoming an almost angry pulse. The white eyes narrowed, and the perpetual grin stretched wider, revealing rows of sharper, more menacing teeth. This wasn't a supervillain's ego being bruised. This was something far more primal. This was a direct challenge to the symbiote's honor, and Venom's protective fury was about to erupt. Without a word, Venom launched himself from the drum. It was a black, raw power. Electro, still smirking, barely registered the movement before he was seized, lifted effortlessly off the ground. The crackle of electricity around him died as Venom's massive hand clamped down, absorbing his power, momentarily incapacitating him. Sandman roared, shifting his form into a towering fist of sand, but Venom was already on him, moving with surprising agility for his bulk. The fight was brutal, swift, and one-sided. Venom wasn't aiming to subdue, he was aiming to punish, to teach a lesson in respect. Tendrils lashed out, fists flew, and the warehouse became a whirlwind of destructive rage. The Sinister Six, who had so confidently believed they could command this force, found themselves utterly outmatched, caught off guard by the sheer, unbridled ferocity of their former ally. When it was over, Electro lay stunned, his powers flickering weakly, while Sandman was scattered across the floor in disconnected piles of sand, slowly struggling to reform. The other minor members of the Six, if any were present at that precise moment, had wisely vanished. Venom stood amidst the wreckage, breathing heavily, the black suit rippling with a satisfaction that was terrifying to behold. He had made his point. This brief, violent alliance served as a stark demonstration of Venom's volatile nature and his profound inability to work with others, especially within a team dynamic. He is simply too much of a loner, too driven by his own internal code, his own particular sense of justice, and his deeply personal protective bond with the symbiote. His twisted sense of pride cannot abide insult, and his singular focus leaves little room for compromise or collaboration. Among the towering egos and self-serving ambitions of Spider-Man's other greatest foes, Venom was an anomaly, a rogue element unwilling to bend to any will but his own. His tenure with the Sinister Six was short-lived because, ultimately, Venom doesn't join teams, he is a force unto himself. And so, the legend of Venom's time with the Sinister Six remains a curious footnote, a testament to the unpredictable chaos he brings, and a reminder that some forces are simply too wild to be tamed. What do you think of Venom's brief, explosive turn as a team player? Did you know about this moment in his history? Share your thoughts and theories in the comments below. If you enjoyed this exploration of a truly unique character, consider subscribing or following for more deep dives into the fascinating world of comics. We'd love to have you join our conversation.